People don't leave jobs, they leave managers and organizations with a negative work culture. This might sound like a cliche, but sadly, it's true. Whether you are a startup or an established company, creating a workplace playground where people feel heard, empowered, while still delivering and being productive is really important. And the secret to doing that is by putting your people first. Well, you're in luck today because we have with us the amazing Sally Bendtson that will share with us how she makes HR fun and simple and how you can do the same. Welcome to the Mary Poppins of Startups. I'm Naili Makangu from Athena Leaders, an organization that is passionate about helping startups and companies deliver tech projects and launch products whilst leaving behind the legacy of a happy and productive workplace playground. If you are new to the show, quick reminder. We love it when you interact with us, and especially when we have Sally on the show, please make sure to ask your questions. We will either answer live or we'll track you down. Number two, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. So, what do we mean by putting people first? What does it mean to you? And should you worry if you are a startup? Well, I'm actually glad that today I'm not going to be answering this question as we have Sally that will be answering for us live on the show. Sally Bendtson from Limelight HR helps creative and media businesses reach their goals by working with them to create an individual approach to HR. HR doesn't have to be boring, and your people shouldn't feel like they are being policed and or having their jobs made harder. By providing bespoke and creative solutions, Sally supports managers and CEOs to ensure that people thrive and the company thrives as well. Say goodbye to unnecessary jargons, rigid processes, and say hello to clear processes, fun, but an increase in productivity, and employees will want to stay for your company for many years to come. Welcome to the show, Sally.
Hi, thank you. That was an amazing introduction.
Oh, well, it's well served, right? I've been following you for a while on social media, and I thought, oh my God, I have to bring Sally on the show. For anyone watching this, we really are going to talk about this idea of HR, how Sally delivers for clients, but we're also going to dive into Sally's personality and what I think is one of the secrets for her success. So do please keep watching because there's a lot of great things coming. And I'm like a child that's already excited about asking all the questions at once. So before I lose my thread of thoughts, as a gentle introduction, what do you understand by putting people first?
I think it's just a lot of people come to us with questions about what they can do legally. And I don't think that's what is important. It's about what do you want to do and what is the right and fair thing to do. So I'd ask yourself more often, what is morally the right thing to do in this situation, and make your decisions based on people and how you believe people deserve to be treated, not what's written in a handbook or a policy. There's got to be some guidance behind it. And obviously I'm not suggesting that you take unnecessary risks. But yeah, make the decision based on the person, not on a black and white piece of paper.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of people generally sometimes they're worried that if they are not following a rigid set of policy or processes, that they might introduce some kind of unfairness and bias in the organization. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a really interesting question because we do talk about making HR fun and simple and avoiding process and policy. You do actually need some things underlying and underpinning everything that you do so that you do make sure that there's equality and fairness. But it's understanding that everybody is an individual. So there is no policy that's going to cover all situations. And I think as long as you bear in mind, if I was to be asked why I made this decision, would I be comfortable sharing that out loud? Because if you're not, you're probably doing something that isn't really fair and that you realize isn't fair. But if you can make a decision knowing that you've weighed up all the different options, that you've thought about everybody involved, that you've thought about how it would be fair and how it would impact on other people, then you're making the right decision at that point in time, and that's all you can do. Yeah.
Exactly. I find that a lot of the managers, especially when I work with small company or tech companies, first-time managers really struggle with these ideas of making fair decisions. And sometimes for them, the best way of leading the team is by leaving some of the, let's just call it human feelings out of the door. So one of the things that comes out a lot is that people struggle as a managers to understand how can you build a good working relationship or even go for drinks and create some kind of friendship with the team, that the people that you are managing, because that could influence their role in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something people struggle with all the time. And I think if you care enough to worry about that, that's a good start because it means you're conscious of it and it means you want to do the right thing. And at the end of the day, as long as you want to do the right thing, you can get help with working out exactly what that is. And it is important to treat people as individuals, to see people as the human beings that they are, with their own personal lives, their own struggles, their own things that they have going on outside of work, because all of that impacts work. So it is important to build that relationship of trust and understanding where you really know the person. They're not just somebody doing a job. But yeah, the other challenge is that it's a fine line then between being best friends with somebody and having to manage them. And that comes from mutual respect, an understanding of somebody's skills and abilities, how you can support them as a manager, having very clear boundaries, very clear communication. And when people have that respect for you and they feel respected in return, then they will automatically want to do a good job for you. And that's the ideal situation.
Yeah. In fact, when I first met you, one thing that really strike me in our initial discussion was how, well, in your approach to your customers, you really emphasize these ideas of how do you look at setting up not just the HR functionality, but the way they work with the managers, in the way that we promote a good workplace, a good culture, rather than just focusing on what can we do to make sure that we don't get sued, or we make sure that we handle the exit interviews better. Can you talk us through a little bit about that? Because I found that quite fascinating, your angle and your approach to HR, which is very different than the way a lot of people assume HR should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find it frustrating and a bit disappointing sometimes the way that HR is spoken about, or legal support, or why a company should get HR support. A lot of companies, particularly these big organizations or outsourced type organizations, will lead with risk. They will lead with what could go wrong with your employees? What could your employees do to you? What are the worst things that could happen? How much could it cost you? I think that's such an awful way to approach people. And I would much rather look at it as an aspirational, inspirational, what could great look like? What could amazing people do for your organization? How much further could you take your dreams and your goals and your ambitions if you've got the right people on board? And imagine if everybody loves going into work and respects each other and treats each other well and hits their goals and celebrates the big milestones. Why not aim for all those great things instead of thinking about all the things that could go wrong? That's not a way to live life, I don't think, and it's not a way to do business.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's so much focus on protecting ourselves, but I genuinely believe that if you create what I call the workplace playground, is one of the reasons why even starting with that is by really emphasizing that to avoid the negative that could happen in the future, you really need to think about how can I create the positive in the first place.
Yeah.
Then you are setting your mindset in a different way that can really lead your people within your team and the company in general in down the right path. In your experience, have you ever had to deal with leaders or even the CEO of the company that on one hand will talk about this importance of people first, because again, this is what we see a lot on social media, but on the other hand, their approach to dealing with people kind of conflicted with the messaging that they wanted to portray?
Yeah, a lot of times over the years, an awful lot. And, to be fair to them, it can be a struggle, because trying to manage a business and manage all of those different jobs you have on in that seniority of role, and the pressures and challenges that you face around time, around budgets, around targets, around business development, around making sure that you've got the money to pay people, that comes with all its own struggles and stresses. And in those kind of situations, you can have your aspirational approach to people, but find yourself under pressure behaving in a different way. And I think some people just genuinely don't have a desire to look after people, and they just look at the bottom line, and they just look at their targets, and they see people as a resource to achieve things. But others do want to do the best. They maybe just not got the self-awareness to really reconsider how they're going about it. It takes effort. It takes an actual desire to be genuinely interested. And I love that we get to work with businesses where the people that run them are so passionate about their team and the culture and what they want to achieve that they will proactively go and look for ways in order to do that. And they will use us to help them find those fun, interesting ways, because you can have a great culture, but it doesn't stay there automatically. You have to keep working at it, especially if the business is growing. Things don't stay the same. You have to be proactive and not just expect other people to keep those things going. But it's challenging when you work with people who say that people are the top thing on their agenda. But realistically, a lot of decisions they make, you can see are having an impact on the morale. But it's my job to be able to have those conversations with them and challenge them on that and try and help them find an alternative, because otherwise I'm not serving them if I just enable those things and don't try and help change them.
That's right. In fact, is whenever I start working with clients, even if my role is really, I work a lot on the technical and operations side, but I genuinely believe that people are at the core of what I do. And if I'm going to start with an engagement, I love going on platforms. I think Glassdoor is one of the really good ones where you can read reviews about the company. Because my research on the company on social media, I think every company will get an A star if you were just to look at social media and what they put out there. But the truth is really when you look at Glassdoor, because I've seen that as well, even if you are a small company struggling or a large company struggling, whatever the situation is, the way people feel will be reflected in their rating and the kind of things they say about the company.
Absolutely. And I think it's a bit like anything. People are maybe more likely to say something negative than they are something positive. It's a bit like TripAdvisor, isn't it? You have to try and weigh up to how much sway will I give to that particular review. But it's true. And especially now when people are fighting to recruit talent, you can't afford to have a number of reviews where people are suggesting that it's not the kind of place you want to work. Your reputation is huge now as a business. If you want to be attracting the best people and you're fighting against other people in your industry, your reputation is huge. And it shouldn't just be because you want to look good. It should be because you genuinely want those people to think and feel those positive things. And I think when you hear negative feedback, whether it's on something like Glassdoor or in an exit interview, it's quite easy to dismiss it and say, oh, well, they struggled with this and they didn't work well in that and they just fell out with somebody. And it's quite easy to find reasons why, but I think it's much more important to try and look at it and face up to it and say, okay, what can we take from this? Even if we don't fully agree with everything they've said, what can we take from this and what can we change? I always say feedback is a gift. It is an opportunity to make a change so that nobody ever makes that comment again. So why wouldn't you?
Feedback might not be the easiest thing to hear, but yes, you nicely put it. Feedback is a gift. And when you look at some of the challenges as well, as you mentioned, when we look at smaller companies, we're going to talk a little bit about startup in a bit. But first, let's look at large companies. Do you think that large companies have an advantage when it comes to building a right or positive culture?
No. my quick answer.
Tell us more.
I think it's probably a struggle because quite often with larger companies, things have just grown into what they've become. And it's quite difficult to make a serious shift and a change. And you're talking, it could potentially take years to make a serious change. Also, you get pockets and different departments and different areas that operate in very different ways. So you can't just take a one-size-fits-all approach to fixing situations. You need to look at, will that work in all areas of the business? And have I taken on everybody's needs and desires and opinions? So it's a really big piece of work. And so much of culture and the positivity relies on management and leadership. That's really where it stems from. So the larger that group is, the more effort you have to make sure that all of those people are aligned with those people-based values. And you need to hold them accountable if they're not. And I think too much in big organizations, some of those bad behaviors are hidden or not dealt with, because businesses are just too busy going through the motions. But actually, if those things are allowed to continue, the problems just perpetuate, and it's difficult to make that shift. You can't just look at your people and say, come on, people, let's change, let's be this. It just doesn't work like that. So it needs a lot of people to be on board with it at the top.
Yeah. And in addition to the lot of people, I also like looking into it in terms of organizational debt. So every single time that you take a shortcut in some of the decisions, we are going to, maybe we're not going to pay attention to the people aspect because we are going for this project that we need to finish on time, or those are the restrictions that we are working against, or we just don't have the time to look into that. Yeah. Eventually, it all piles up. And the debts will always need to be paid. Now, if you look at it from the perspective of smaller company, and especially when we focus mostly on startups, one of the things that I see a lot of startups is that you have, of course, the different pressures. You have the investors' pressure or the early customers making sure that you need to build the platform or do whatever you need to grow, whilst at the same time, you are struggling to attract people in your company. You have to be very creative when it comes to compensation, but you also want to create a great culture, but it's not your main field because you might not have had a lot of experience managing teams as a founder or things like that. So how do you see that and some of the challenges that the startups can have when they don't focus on the people at the very beginning?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question because obviously there are challenges and pressures early on in a startup, and your focus can be elsewhere because you're in that growth stage. A lot of people don't necessarily think to involve HR or somebody who's culture based at that stage because they think it's for bigger companies, but actually there's real potential to use it right from the beginning when things are much easier and you get those things in place really in simple, engaging ways. And you can use specialists to help you do that. You don't need to be great at doing that. You just need to want it for your business. I think quite often the first thing startups will do is look at HR companies or consultancies to maybe help with things like contracts and handbooks, which are a starting point, because within that you can set out the kind of culture that you want your company to have. You can set out what you believe, what your mission and vision is. So it goes some way towards it. But actually, if you involve somebody from a people perspective from that stage, you can also look at, what do I do to help recruit people? How do I stand out from the crowd? How do I have an onboarding process that says, look how much we care about you. You haven't even joined us yet, but we are so invested in you. These are all the things we're already putting in place. Those are the things that will really make a difference and give somebody the confidence that they've joined the right business and build the right mindset from the start and get everybody on the same page as quickly as possible. And you really need those initial few people that join will make all the difference to the future of your business. So you really have to invest that time and effort in them so that you make it as positive as possible and get everything out of the team that you need, really. So yeah, it's an ideal time as a startup. I think it's really important to know what your purpose is as a startup. What is it that you are saying to people come in with me, join me, be on board with this journey. You need to be really clear on what that is. And I think sometimes it's difficult. People set up their businesses and they've got a lot of things in their mind, but it's helping them pull all of that out so that they're able to communicate it. They know how special they are. They know what's important to them, but sometimes it's difficult to articulate it in a way that really helps other people understand it and bring them on board. And that's not just for your clients. It's not when you're going out and marketing. It's what does it mean in-house? Because also a lot of clients now want to work with businesses who stand for something, whose teams are on board, who have clear values, who have a clear purpose and vision. You know, they want your team to be on board with that. They want to be on board with that. They want to feel some kind of synergy. So it's a huge part of the startup process. And as well, when you're maybe competing with bigger companies who can pay bigger salaries, and you're trying to say, no, come to a startup where things might not be, you might not have the big salaries, you might not have the security that you might imagine from a big company, but actually what we offer is so much more. And it's really important to be able to verbalize what that more is and why it's important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if there's any startup listening right now, I think that you just nailed that. I think a lot of one of the things that people talk a lot about recently, and I mentioned it a bit in the live we had a few sessions ago, is this idea of sustainability. People now, when people want to buy things or they want to work for a company, they really focus on the people, the planet, and the profit, and how companies are being authentic when it comes to all the three areas. And as you said, having a clear, being able to, not even just having a mission of a purpose in your head, but being able to articulate that in a way that people seeing your branding out there, especially when it comes to recruitment branding, they can really feel and see the reason why they should come and work for you. So if you had another couple of advice that you will give to startups they are early stage and they're wondering on how to grow, they have a vision of bringing more of a cultural and HR purpose person in the future, but they believe that they might not have the budget for that just now. What are a couple of other things in addition to the clear purpose? What are the things that they can do?
I think be really clear about what it is that you need help with and what somebody could bring to the team. And even if that's just writing down every single thing that it is that you do and everything it is maybe that you wish you could do with your time, and working out what of those things could you actually designate to somebody else. It might mean that you use an outsourced service for some of it, before bringing somebody into the business. But be very clear. If you are going to bring somebody in, you need to be absolutely clear about what their role and their remit's going to be. And you need to be very clear in the recruitment and when you interview and when you bring somebody on board. There is nothing worse than bringing somebody in and then you're sort of, I'm not sure what your purpose is, and I'm not entirely sure what I need you to do, and somebody's left floundering. You need to work all of that out before you even start the process. And I think it's really about understanding, getting feedback, getting the involvement of those people in the early days and how you grow the business and what you do next, so that they feel part of the team and the early decision making. But also you do have to take that bit of leap of faith. I speak to a lot of companies who are scared of recruiting their first people, which I fully understand. And I've seen it myself. It's very different in-house in a company, being a manager, to owning your own business and bringing staff in. It is a completely different situation and scenario. And I suppose I've got the HR background, so I've got a lot of things ticked that I don't have to worry about. So for people to set up a business and then have to go through the process of bringing somebody on board, people are nervous. They want to make sure they do it right. They want to make sure they pick the right person. So I think get some support on that. Help build your confidence so that you know that you're doing the right thing, that you know you're asking the right questions, so that you're bringing the right person on board. You're not making snap decisions. And get some help and feedback, even if it's a best friend or somebody that you do know that does HR and recruitment. Be very clear about the role. Be very clear in all of your communications. Don't oversell the role. I think a lot of people do that because they want somebody to come in and do the world, and then the reality is they come in and it's not quite what they'd been sold. They'd been sold the dream, you know. So I think being clear about that's really important.
Yeah. I think I wish that you spoke to one of the companies I worked for a long time ago. I'm still young, but when I was younger, and
Same.
it was exactly. It was. I think it's one of. I think the way you set the stage really can destroy someone's motivation. I was hired, I think it was my placement role. And when I talked to the company, it was an amazing company. And it was all about doing amazing things. It was going to be tech-based, and we're going to do a bit of support role. And throughout the process, even the interviews, even the kind of exercise that I was doing during the interview, I felt like, yes, this is the place to be. I'm really excited. I really wanted to go in. Unfortunately, when I got in, I learned that my department was about to be made redundant. I was in the second year of the 3-year periods to make the department redundant, and those who were permanent were going to be moved to other roles or leave the company. So I spent about a year in that role, feeling miserable every single day, where I barely had every work to do. Depending on where you were working, other students had an amazing experience. My amazing experience just came from the fact that my manager or my supervisor was amazing. And he really handled the situation well, tried to keep me occupied, tried to loan me to other teams so that I can do some work. And we had a good relationship. If it wasn't for that, I think I probably would have, I don't think I would even remember the great aspect of working in that company. And again, it's another example of how the people aspect of the way he handled it, despite the restriction that I had for me to have a great experience in the company, really helped me to at least get something positive out of that.
Yeah, it's an awful shame that people would bring people into a business like that. And that's where it should come down to people and being honest and having integrity. But thank goodness that you did have a manager who at least made some effort and some positive difference to you. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other aspects, when we look at how you can create this, workplace playground, or in a place where people feel empowered and heard and you are very productive, is communication. So how do you help companies improve the way that they communicate in a positive light?
Yeah, communication is everything. I think I'm yet to do a staff survey where communication doesn't come back as a point for improvement. I think it's really interesting. And I think a lot of leadership and management and business owners look at communication and say, but we are communicating. We communicate all the time. What more do people want? But if people are coming back from surveys, giving feedback saying communication isn't great, it means it's not working. So even if you think it is, if the response is that it's not, you need to look at it. And that's because communication is in so many different forms. And people have such different views of what that is. People want to know, how a business is doing, what they're achieving, where they're at against their goals. They want to know what's happening in other teams. They want to know about recruitment that's happening. They want to know some personal stories about the people that they share their workspace with. It might just be that they want more one-to-ones with their manager because they hear the big company stuff, but they don't hear the more individual feedback that they want and need. So for me, it's really important to get feedback from your team first. With anything in HR, I find the problem with a lot of HR teams is that they roll things out because they have a need to say, we're working on this project, or we've decided this would be a really good thing to roll out, and they roll it out to the masses. And then you get all the staff saying, why are we doing this? This is awful. And it's just a pointless exercise. We've all been there. Yeah. And I think, why do that? Why not just speak to people and say, what would you like? And then we'll do it. It's such an easier way of doing it. And obviously you can't do everything that people ask for, but then all you have to do is honestly communicate with people why you're not able to do that thing. people aren't silly. They know you have to run a business. So you can ask for feedback without worrying that you then will have to deliver on everything that's asked. You're only asking for ideas and suggestions. You're getting input. And then you, as the business owner or the management team, decide what to do with that. And you communicate why you're doing some of those things. And if there's things that you can't, you just explain why. And people thank you for being honest and transparent with them. So I think rather than trying to put your own communication plan in and working out what that is, simply ask people, what is it they would like more of? What do they want to know? How often do they want to know it? How do they hear it best? Is it a newsletter? Is it in an all staff meeting? Is it in small team meetings? Involve them in it and find out. I find working groups are really useful if the company's big enough to do it, to get feedback, get people from different teams working together on what would work for them, so that you don't come up with a solution that suits one team and not another. Try and get some working groups together, some collaboration. It means people get to understand what happens in other teams as well. They get to build relationships with people from other teams that they might not otherwise have worked with. And then you get all these amazing creative solutions that you wouldn't have come up with yourself. And you get to implement them and everybody's happy. Simple.
Yeah. And actually, I love working groups. Like I said, okay, every time you put a committee together, there's always going to be a lot of debate and challenges and a lot of different views. And some people shy away from that. But what I love about it, and exactly like you said, is that people feel that not just being heard, but they feel like they are part of the process. So it gives more chances of success to whatever you are implemented, rather than doing it solo or going the easy way of not asking people to come together and debate over it. Yes, you might implement something, and at the end of the day, they don't like it, and you back to square one, trying to imagine something else to implement for the company.
Yeah. And that's all you can do. You try, you set a time on it, you review it. You look at it if it's working, you speak to people again and say, okay, it's not working for that reason, we'll try something else. People are flexible. People want nice things to happen. And they will work with you on creating that if you've got that open communication.
Yeah. It's just what's interesting for me, one thing that you've mentioned whilst we were discussing and bringing you on the show was how your team was growing. And you obviously run your own company, Limelight HR. And I'd like to hear a little bit about your own approach to HR as your team is growing. That's a curveball. We didn't talk about that.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, it's simple. It's really easy, guys. No, I absolutely love my team, and it makes me so sad when I hear people talking disparagingly about a team of people. Because I just think, your people are what make an absolute difference to you. I would not have got the business where it is today without a team of people. I would always have had a limit. And I have to invest time and effort into that. I recognize times where I am not the best manager that I would like to be, because I do have those time constraints that small businesses have and single owner businesses. It's challenging, but I talk to my team about that. I explain if I'm having a period of time where I've got a lot going on, and we try and find other ways of communicating and making it, very clear that they have to find other ways to talk to me, that they must reach out if there's ever anything that they need. And I try and hold my hands up if there's anything that I don't do the way I would ideally like it to do. But I also do a lot with them where the kind of things we do and around appraisals and probation reviews and onboarding, I'm always looking to them to say, how did that feel? What's your feedback from that? Because actually, if this is something we're going to talk to other businesses about doing, then it would be great to know how it feels from you. So you're like our little guinea pigs. It's great. We're all on board with, like I talked about before, about purpose. We all genuinely, passionately believe that people deserve to be happy at work. Mm-hmm. It's a very simple idea, but we feel so strongly about it. We've all had experiences in the past where we didn't feel like that, and we didn't feel respected, we didn't feel valued, and we just weren't happy. And we could see the impact of that in how we then performed in our roles. So we all come together under that real desire to make a difference in business and to make sure that we can impact as many businesses as possible to make sure that their people go into work feeling happy. And that makes us feel really good. And that's where we all really gel and feel very positive. And like you talked about the different approaches to HR, we're all excited to be doing the Limelight approach to things. And when we did the recruitment, people gave such positive feedback about, you know, our website, our approach, about wanting to join the team because they could see how people focused it was. And that's where your whole purpose and your real drive stands out to people, and it helps you bring those people on board. And what you want on board are the people that have got the same vision and approach as you. And that's where you've got to be really clear about how you communicate it, and then follow that through in the interview process and in everything that you do with them. So yes, I feel very, very lucky. And the team is still growing, and hopefully we'll keep doing that. And it's an absolute joy to meet people that have the same passion for people that we do. And it's exciting to know that there's so many more people we could bring on board in the future.
Yeah. And I also love watching your progress online. And as you've mentioned about this way of being authentic in your messaging, I can really see and feel you even when I go on social media. I guess for myself, when I started my company, I kind of knew the kind of person I am, very playful, and I love talking about workplace playground because it really emphasizes my vision. I want to have fun at work whilst I do my work. Thank you for the free food and all of those toys at work, but that's an added bonus, is the icing on the cake. I want the cake to be edible and have the right value, the right culture, and I know I'm feeling empowered. And that's kind of how I translate my message. What I love about you, which I think, of course, you use different terminology, but we're very aligned in that sense. And one of the things that attracted me was also your approach. And I use a lot of TikTok, and you really are present in your social media, the fun videos, dancing with the team joining along. Can you talk me through, how you came up with this concept and how you decided to present yourself that way, which is very different than corporate organization that wants everything to be overly polished, but a little bit boring.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting because I suppose I've always had that idea of a fun approach. I'm somebody who likes to enjoy myself. I like to have fun. I like to laugh. And you always, here you should set up a business that you love to work in, and it should really be authentic to you. And I very much struggled, I think, when I first set up the business to think, how do I marry Sally, who's a particular type of person, with helping people to feel that they can trust in my professionalism and my ability to do the HR side of things, especially when you're trying to sell your business and put your business out there and have people take you seriously, but at the same time you want to be yourself. And I found that a little bit of a struggle. And then when we went into lockdown, I found TikTok. It was just brought joy to my life. And I started, I just was doing it for fun, to have a sort of creative outlet, because I was obviously stuck in the house like everybody else was, with my then 1 or 2 year old who couldn't speak. So TikTok was my savior. And I started making them for fun and putting them on Facebook. And then I was on LinkedIn, and all I could read was furlough and redundancy and terrible things are happening, which obviously they were. But I thought, do I want to be another voice talking about all these awful things, or do I want to try and lift it and bring some positivity to it? So I put one of my TikToks on LinkedIn, and I was in a bathrobe and I'd got my hair tied up and I'd got a glass of gin. I won't say the words that I said. And people just loved it because it was totally out of the blue. It was totally left field. And at that point, I suddenly went, I can be me. I can wear this. I can do this, because who cares at the end of the day? It is just me. It is how I talk. It's how I am with people. It's how I live my life. So I shouldn't separate those two things. And from there, my confidence to be myself just grew and grew and grew. And then you would think other people might be like, oh, TikTok. But everybody I get in the team as part of our induction process is, you have to do a TikTok on your first day. So that, it's very much the induction process is in line with our business, how we work, how we like to have fun, the fact that but we work with media and creative type organizations. So we do these TikToks, we have great fun, and the team love it, and they will look for new TikToks to do. And we've got a list of things that when we find the time to do it, we will do them. But it's really part and parcel of who we are now. And it just brings me so much joy that I get to share that with the team as well.
Yeah, and this is another example of how you've taken that aspect and really made it part of the culture of the company in terms of the messaging, so that people coming on board, they really know how you've created this space for them to express themselves, but also what you kind of value as well.
Absolutely. And it means when we were recruiting, we had links to our TikToks, and people got a real sense of the company, the madhouse that they were joining or wanting to join. And it means that we got the right people coming in the door who were like, do you know what? Actually, I'd love to do a TikTok. Yeah. They got a real sense of who we were before they even came through the door, which I think is good.
I can relate to that, because when I before I take on an engagement, and when I start to get to know the clients, of course they can experience me, they can go on my YouTube and see the kind of talk and discussion that I do on my lives, so they have a sense of my personality from my social media. One thing I like to mention is that if you're going to work with me, we are going to work hard, whatever hours in the day, I will do it. We will deliver on your tech projects. I will get your team back together. We work on the product, the engineers, all of that. But as long as you know that we also are going to have fun. We are going to have processes, but we are going to have fun. And if their eyes rolls and I wait for that to settle, and if they settle and they realize that maybe we don't want to have fun, we don't want to have that culture of working together, I'm like, well, that's fine, then I'm not the right person for you to work with. And I think that it's really important to have that out there when you work with people and you're attracting new clients as well.
Yeah, and it's the same when you've got a team of people. You want them to be able to enjoy the work that they're doing. So you want to attract the right clients so that what they get to do is enjoy themselves and work with people who are going to respect them and have fun with them and make it enjoyable for them. I don't ever want to have my team deal with clients who aren't on board with that and don't speak to them the way we believe people should be spoken to, and don't have that positive, respectful approach. So it's not just important for me, it's important for them and for the rest of our clients, that we're all part of a community that believe in the same thing and have that positive, upbeat approach.
Yeah. And do you have any advice for leaders out there that are watching this and says, oh, it's easy for you to say, bring your personality to work, and I'm struggling to do that? Is there any advice that you can share with them to loosen up a bit and use that as an opportunity to connect with their teams the way I do with my clients and you do with your clients and your teams as well?
Yeah, I think everybody feels like that before they get involved in these things. And sometimes you just have to jump in both feet. I think if you can lead a team or lead a company, you've already got something about you. So build on that, and don't take it too seriously. To be honest, when you first do these things, nobody watches them anyway. So just get them out there. Just do it for the hell of it, Yeah, you don't have to worry about people looking. Just and get your team involved. If there's people in your team that are excited to do some fun stuff on social media or TikToks, get them involved. And there's a whole array of things. You don't have to, I do some silly dances sometimes. You don't have to do the silly dances. You can find your own approach to do it, whether it's because you've got a product or whether it's some top tips that you want to share with clients. If you've got somebody who manages your social media or somebody in your team who's good with social media, who can jazz it up a bit. If there's something you feel passionately about, do a video just where you talk about something like that. Or if there's an article that's come out recently and you've got a viewpoint on it that you feel strongly about, that you feel would be helpful to the kind of people you want to work with, then you can share that. And you can talk it through, and you can talk about what your response to it is. And then people get a sense of who you are much easier than if they're just reading on your About Us page, trying to get a sense of you, when they can see you moving, talking. And the more you get used to doing those types of things, the more you might then get comfortable pushing the boundaries a little bit. Or give me a call. I'll come do a TikTok with you and get you going.
Well, I'm writing this down because next time I'm in the UK, I'd love to be in one of your TikToks. What I love is about the advice. Yeah, definitely. What I love about the advice you've shared, when I work with startups, one of the things that they struggle with is customer acquisition, customer retention. They might not have a huge marketing budgets for adverts or to put themselves out there. Yet by doing what you've said, showing a bit of your personality in the way that you advertise your products, whether it's a new brand of tea or a new application, a new VR headset, wear the headset and have fun out there. You're talking about renewable energy. How can you bring that to life to the people that are following you so that you are not just yet another voice out there, but you bring some fun, laughter, but then you also stay in people's mind much longer than the other corporate or one vision, like I call them, messaging that we see online.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you work with somebody, it's about the relationship, the working relationship you've got with that person. The end point is what they deliver, but it's the how they deliver it that's really important and what makes it enjoyable. So you just want to get somebody to have a sense of what would it be like working with you. So feel comfortable sharing your personality. Be proud of that. That's who they're going to work with at the end of the day. So they may as well see who it is now.
Exactly. We had a question come in. So thanks for anyone who posted the messages in the comments. Any other question, please feel free to put them in before we end the show. But if you do afterward, we'll find you live. We'll find you after the live show. #AthenaLeaders. So the question is about the lack of effective communication. So lack of effective communications is one of the reasons many companies are seeing high employee turnover. Do you have tools, methods to gather employee satisfaction, survey, or feedback?
Yeah, we do something very simple. We tend to do feedbacks on SurveyMonkey. So it's absolutely something that you can do yourself. We obviously, with some companies, we come up with all the questions to help them get to the bottom of whatever it is that they want to. But SurveyMonkey is available to everybody. The other thing I would say is it's one thing getting a survey out. It will give you a sense of where things are lacking, but it won't give you all the detail. So it's not enough to do a survey, make assumptions about what those results mean, and then input a strategy based on your assumptions. So the survey is the first part of the gathering of information. The working groups are the second part to really get to the bottom of that. And if you've got a small team and you don't need working groups, then just do it in a team meeting. Say to people in advance, this team meeting, we're going to look at how can we improve X, and make that the theme of that particular team meeting, get all the feedback and go away and implement it, or talk to people about, do they want to be responsible for implementing elements of it? And then everybody's bought into it and it feels like they own it and they're a part of it rather than it's something that's being done to them.
Yeah. And again, sometimes we over confuse things and we can make it very simple. Like you said, just a team meeting and asking question is already a great way of getting or starting to improve the communication in the team.
Yeah, I've seen teams of managers debate between themselves what something means. I think we can have that conversation till the end of time, but we won't know unless we just ask the person that's not just there.
It's much simpler. Just ask and that's it.
Just ask.
So what's next for Limelight HR? Because I know that your company is growing. What do you see yourself in the future?
Oh gosh, big question. I just see us growing a lot. I think there's so much potential for us to help and add value out there that I think there's a real opportunity for us to keep growing a team of like-minded people who have this people-first approach. I think the world has changed, and where businesses used to have the upper hand, it's not the situation anymore. You have to really fight to get the best people in your business, and you have to stand out from the crowd. You need to really believe in something. People want to feel passionate about what they're doing and about what their business is doing. It's not always about the best salaries. It's about feeling that your work is meaningful and that you're respected and valued as part of your company. So businesses can't just go about the day job and expect people to stay and do a good job anymore. They need to offer more. So for those companies that are already starting from a positive standpoint, there's a real opportunity to do even more and be head and shoulders above other companies. And for those that aren't, there's still huge opportunity for them to start implementing some fairly basic things that will make a huge change. And that's where I see a real opportunity for us. And the fact that we like to make it fun, the fact that we like to make it engaging, we want people to enjoy the process of working with us. And I think that's a great way to build relationships with other people and ultimately hit our target of making as many people at work as happy as they can be. So the more companies we can do that with, the better.
Oh, that's brilliant. Brilliant vision. And I will be following you on your way, dancing to your TikToks, especially on a dark day when it's gray and raining. I'll go online and I'm like, what is Sally's up to today? And I will encourage everybody out there to do the same. Last question, Sally, before we go, what is one tip that you can share to any person out there, whether they have a manager title or not? What is one thing that every single individual can do to help us as a collective to create this workplace playground?
Care, I think, is the main thing. Genuinely care. Just care about the people around you, your family, your friends, the people you work with. Have a genuine interest and desire to know and ask questions. All the rest of it will just naturally come from there. You just have to care in the first place.
There you have it. Caring is one of the simplest ways to design a workplace playground. And in this show, we've shared with you even more tips, practical tips that you can take from today. Even if you are a big company, and especially if you are a small company or startups, there's plenty of things to do. You know where to find Sally on social media, and we'll put more information in the show notes. Thanks a lot, Sally. It was a pleasure. And as I've said, I will find you and we will release one day a TikTok together.
We will.
In the meantime, for everybody out there, you now have all the tools to design a happy and productive workplace playground.